Liam Lawson has taken over at Alpha Tauri, while Daniel Ricciardo recovers from his wrist surgery following a crash in free practice. After qualifying in P20 and enduring by far the most chaotic race of the year so far, Liam brought the Alpha Tauri home in P13. It's nothing too epic, but it's very hard to imagine any other junior driver performing much better with only 1 hour of practice and a whole season's worth of weather changes in the Grand Prix. Throughout 72 laps, 4 pit stops, and a very bold unlapping attempt on Max Verstappen, Lawson must have felt that this was a pretty epic reserve drive and a good introduction to Formula 1. Backup drivers in Formula 1 have tricky jobs. Of course, few, if any of them, actually want to be reserve drivers. They're all just waiting for that one chance. The chance to show their skills among the best in the world on the racetrack and on their journey to a full-time race seat. That's what Lawson did last weekend, and in this video we'll take a look through the history books at some other top-draw reserve driver performances. It's December 1990, and Bertrand Gachot is on his way to a meeting with big boss Eddie Jordan and business reps from 7up to work on a livery and sponsorship deal for Jordan's debut season in F1. Cut to Gachot driving through London on his way to the meeting, and he gets himself into a bit of a confrontation with a black cab driver, quoted as being a road rage incident, which allegedly crescendoed in fisticuffs and pepper spray. Gachot is arrested and his trial date is set for the week before Spa in 1991. Now it's time for Eddie to get on the phone and find a backup, and top of his list is a young German star who can get in anything with 4 wheels and push it to its absolute mechanical limit, no matter the time or the place. He calls up and says, "Hello Mercedes, I've got a spare car and if you can afford it, I've got a spot for Michael." 22-year-old Michael Schumacher shows up to Spa-Francorchamps, a circuit he had only ever visited as a spectator before. As a wonderful juxtaposition to the high-powered racing beast he would later blast around the Belgian Forest Road, Michael went out on his fold-up bicycle to get an understanding of just how much camber is on the entry to Eau Rouge, the elevation change at Pouhon, and just where to brake for the bus stop chicane. Job done, now it's time for quali. Let's see what you've really got. Michael crossed the timing beam and delivered a P7 result, equal to the team's highest of the season so far, and crucially, beating his teammate with a minute fraction of the knowledge, experience and familiarity with Formula 1 that his teammate had. On race day though, Michael's car would fail him and force a lap 1 mechanical retirement. But from this day to his last ever turn of the wheel in a Formula 1 car, Michael never really considered doing anything else apart from getting cars around tracks as fast as physics would allow. Now the problem with starting a video like this is that not every story can be just quite as amazing as Michael Schumacher's. But how does this sound? Only ever driving once in Formula 1, and in that one race, leading laps for a team that would go on to score only 1 point in their entire Formula 1 existence. Marcus Winkelhock finishes his formation lap and pulls onto grid spot number 22 at the 2007 European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Michael Schumacher has since bowed out of F1, while McLaren young gun Lewis Hamilton and his teammate Fernando Alonso are engaged in a titanic battle for F1's World Championship crown. But all of that is a world away from Spiker Grand Prix, the team that was 2 iterations before the Jordan outfit that gave Schumacher his debut back in '91, and would go on to become Force India, Racing Point and now Aston Martin. For 2007, Spiker had chosen Christian Albert and Adrian Sutil to be their race drivers, but just over halfway through the season, Albert could no longer fulfill his financial obligations to the team. In his place, test driver and German junior Marcus Winkelhock was brought in. Basically, all Marcus had to do was help with the development and bring the car home in one piece. With these being the season's results so far, expectations weren't too high. Something like leading laps of a Grand Prix was a distant dream for the owners and the sponsors of Spiker. On the formation lap at the Nürburgring, the heavens opened to a far greater extent than anyone expected, and the downpour caught many a team and driver off guard. Marcus and Spiker made the right call to pit for full wets instead of going to the grid, and in turn start from the pit lane in the hopes that having wet tyres would pay off if the rain continued. For 3 laps of the race, as the dry tyres and intermediates were unable to cope with the downpour, Marcus cycled forward to lead the Grand Prix, and he held it until the race was red flagged on account of the conditions. Unfortunately though, after the restart procedure had got underway and the safety car had returned to the pits, Winkelhock chose to double down on his gamble rather than cashing out. By keeping wet weather tyres on, while others opted for the more suitable intermediate, Spiker was again praying for more rain. Though this time it would not fall, and eventually he was forced into retirement after a hydraulic failure on lap 15. Game over, race over, and F1 career over for Marcus Winkelhock, but the story of the Spiker that led laps at the Nürburgring will be retold forever. Alex Worth was recruited to be the reserve driver for the Benetton team in 1997, after F1 veteran Gerhard Berger was forced to miss 3 race rounds for a sinusitis treatment. At this time in Formula 1, Benetton were a significant player at the front of the field, and Wirtz was joining the team with a successful junior record that included the accolade of being the youngest ever Le Mans winner. The expectation on Wirtz was somewhat high, though maybe not astronomical, but he certainly delivered on it, going on to secure a 3rd place in his 3rd ever race with the team. After his 3 outings with Benetton, Berger came back from his surgery surgery to deliver a famous win at the 1997 German Grand Prix on his returning race. But after retiring at the end of the year, this left the seat free for Wirtz, who was able to take it on full time. Something Wirtz would never have been able to prove his readiness for without the initial reserve drive. So between getting himself a podium and securing a full-time F1 drive for next year, Wirtz managed all of this through a go as a reserve driver. And last on my list, I've got George Russell's reserve drive with Mercedes back at the Sakir Grand Prix in 2020. With Lewis Hamilton's 7th title all wrapped up and a positive COVID test taking him out of the Sakir Grand Prix, the race offered both a short and simple track layout as well as an opportunity for young George Russell to leave the Williams team he'd spent this season and the last with. Getting in the Mercedes for George was ultimately a dream come true in odd circumstances. My seat doesn't fit, it's no bother mate, how does P2 in quali sound? And even better, I'll dive bomb Bottas on lap 1 to take the lead. This kid is special, and we're all watching it live. Now for the rest of that race, for some inexplicable reason, the largely faultless Mercedes turned into a Maranello-esque outfit that proceeded to put the wrong tyres on the wrong cars, forcing Russell to sacrifice his lead, redo his overtake on Bottas, which he did tremendously, before picking up yet another tyre problem, this time a slow puncture. All this meant that this epic debut resulted in a lowly P8 finish, but still George's first ever points in Formula 1 were scored. This race is forever a question of what could have been. Now George is full time with the Silver Arrows, they seem a world away from race wins and 8-time back-to-back Constructors champions. So what have we learned? When patience, confidence and raw talent are maximised in the optimal way, success can be found in the increasingly pressured and walled off world of the Formula 1 World Championship. Whose stories have I missed? Which young drivers do you think deserve a chance now that we've seen Lawson make his debut? And lastly, how do you think Lawson will fare this weekend in his second outing in Formula 1 at Monza? Thank you very much for watching, and make sure you subscribe to this channel and follow Crash on all social media to stay up to date with everything from us here at the team.